Hello and welcome back to Nathan Bell's podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe and share with your friends. Today, Nate would like to talk about Peter Hore.
Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about serial pest Peter Hore, aka Shok. Some of you might know Shok because he's very well known around the country for gate crashing celebrity funerals and for storming onto the field in sporting matches with cats on his shoulders and causing all sorts of mischief and being a real nuisance. Police keep an eye on Shok so they can make sure that he doesn't cause any problems. Shok was arrested a few years ago when members of the monarchy were in town. He was arrested catching a train to Sydney where they suspected that he was going to go and harass the monarchy. Shok doesn't like the monarchy. I don't like the monarchy either. That's one of the things that me and Shok share in common. So Shok's been a mate of mine for quite a few years since I moved into Newcastle. I became aware of Shok and his antics about 10 years ago, and I thought, well, isn't he just fantastic, causing all this ruckus and nuisance and stirring people up? See, I like to stir people up as well, and Shok's a bit of an inspiration to me. Shok really knows how to stir people up and cause mischief and get people talking and cause a kerfuffle, and that's one thing I like to do. I like to cause a kerfuffle and get people talking and stir a bit of mischief, because why not be mischievous? Why do we all have to be these tempered, sedated, boring people all the time? You know, get a bit crazy, storm onto the soccer match field and with cats on your shoulders and cause mischief and be a problem and stir people up and some people find it funny. I find Shok's antics quite entertaining. I know a lot of people think he's a real nuisance and don't like him, but I find him quite entertaining. You know, he gets people on, gets you on your feet, gets you on the edge a bit. You know, that's why he calls himself Shok. Get you on the edge a bit, stir you up a bit, cause a bit of mischief, get you going, get your senses going off, so that you're not so sedated and stale all the time. But a lot of people really don't like Shok. I love Shok, and I see Shok regularly. He comes by when I'm selling my books in Hamilton. He comes by at least 2 or 3 times a week and says good day to me. Shok says that I'm starting the revolution, and he comes and praises me because I'm starting the revolution, and he says that nobody's ever done what I'm doing in this city. He says that I'm going to start the real revolution that's really going to change the world. So I appreciate when Shok praises me like that. Shok used to refer to me as abandoned TV because I used to hand out flyers that said abandoned TV to people when I was doing my abandoned TV movement about 8 years ago, and I gave Shok one of those flyers and he really liked it, so he used to refer to me as abandoned or abandoned TV. And I used to see Shok busking up on Derby Street. He used to sell his paintings. He does these strange montage artworks. I quite like them. A lot of them have naked women in them. And I quite like Shok's artworks. They're collections of images that he puts together. They're a bit collagey, and he puts pictures from magazines on the canvas, and then he draws over them and writes all this nonsense stuff all over it. So I really like Shok's art, and I think they'll be collectibles one day, the artworks that he sells. And he sells a few artworks. So you can see Shok on Derby Street or Beaumont Street and buy some art off him or tip him when he's out playing his music. He just rocks on. You know, he just gets out there in the street and he strums and he thrashes and he screams and he shouts abuse at people as they walk past. And that's what he does, and that's his thing, that's his act. So he's a busker as well. So, you know, everyone in Newcastle knows Shok's a local to Newcastle and he's well known in the community. And a lot of people don't like him, as I've said, but that's fine. I think he's a great character. Shok, actually, I've done a number of artworks about Shok over the years. If you go on my Redbubble shop, redbubble.com/people/modern culture NW, you can buy a shirt of Shok. I did a shirt of Shok, and the shirt is designed. I took a photo of Shok while he was busking in King Street many years ago, and then I traced in Photoshop. I traced the photo I took of Shok and coloured it in, and then put the name Shok above it. I spelt his name wrong. I spelt it with a CK, but he spells it SHOK. So you can buy a Shok shirt from my Redbubble shop, redbubble.com/people/modern culture NW. And Shok also makes a cameo in my debut novel, Kings of the New Age, The Quest of the Balancing Stones. He appears about 2/3 of the way through the book, driving along the apocalyptic countryside in a camper van, and the main characters, the heroes on the quest, are hitchhiking, and Shok picks them up and takes them to their next destination. So he appears in my novel. So yeah, I've done a couple of artworks about Shok over the years. Those are the artworks I've done about Shok, and I'll probably do more artworks about Shok in years to come. A lot of people don't know Shok was in a movie. It was a independent Australian movie, and Shok appeared in it briefly. So he's had built a bit of a reputation for himself over the years, and I think he's a great character because we want characters. You know what? It's like in this country, it's becoming to this point. There's no characters. You're not allowed to be a crazy character anymore. What's life without crazy characters like Peter Hore in it? Peter Hore brings life and kerfuffle and fuss to the world, and gets people talking and puts them on edge. We want crazy characters like Peter to put us on edge a bit and get us a bit, our hair standing up. That's what we want. We want funny people like Peter in the world. Peter's a champion, and I try to model myself off Peter a bit by doing things that stir people up. And cause a kerfuffle. And when I do my graffiti and I put my paste ups up around the place, I'm often thinking about Shok, and I'm thinking about how I can stir people up as much as Shok stirs them up. Because Shok really stirs people up, and I'm trying to stir people up as well, but I'm trying to stir people up to talk about politics. Shok's pretty political as well. He's got some views about politics. A lot of the time it can be hard to follow what Shok's saying when he talks. He can talk a bit of gibberish sometimes. But Shok's pretty political, and he's got some views about politics as well. And he's trying to stir people up about politics as well. I think I stir people up about politics a bit better than Shok, but I definitely model some of my antics off Shok's behaviour, and I watch him carefully, and I watch what he does, and I try to emulate his methods for causing a fuss in the community. So drop a comment. There's a bit about Shok's serial pest, Peter Hore, my mate, who I've known for about 10 years now. So drop a comment in the comment section if you know Peter and what your thoughts are on Peter.